How we doing, everybody? And happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday here in the great state of Wisconsin, or wherever you are listening. It is still Wednesday. We are here to talk Wisconsin sports. This is Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. Today we are talking Brewers, NL Central champions. Cubs lost last night, Brewers lost last night, but you know what that equals? A Brewers NL Central crown. So we're going to be talking about the Brewers. We're going to talk about that loss last night against the Cardinals. We're going to talk about the offense a little bit there, why we still have some guys on this roster, how we're feeling about the Brewers. I'm going to debut a new segment here we're going to get into over this next week. And then we're also going to be looking at the Packers just a little bit because they have the Lions coming up on Thursday, and we need to talk about that. We need to talk about what we are thinking leading up into that big game against the Lions. So with that, right away, we are jumping into the Brewers NL Central champions this season. A pretty good season put together by the Brewers with everything put aside. The offense has struggled throughout the year. There's been different components to it with the struggles, with your Adames, your Terang, some of the rookies struggling, some of the veterans struggling at times. But somehow this team keeps putting wins on top of wins. They're the most impressive, offensively terrible teams I have ever seen. That's all I'm going to say. What we covered yesterday, we were talking about years past and how the offense, looking at the Brewers offense, the offense was up there in the high 200s to 300 hitters. They had solid bats across the lineup. They had some weak points. Yes, they did. But they had solid bats in there. You look at like 2018, Orlando Arcia in there. He was made up for. His defense made up for the lack of offense because the rest of the lineup could carry him. This season, we have a lot of defensive guys who are offensive liabilities, but we keep them in there for their defense, but that lacks us in the offensive department. That's where the Brewers have struggled this year. But like I said, one of the most impressive teams to struggle as much as they do on the offensive side, some of their bigger bats taking steps back this year and still be able to produce at a high level. So with that, right away jumping into that, because the Brewers are NL Central champs. Cubs, thankfully, the Braves took care of them last night. The Brewers brushed that off their shoulder. We don't have to be perfect anymore for the rest of this regular season. We got in there as the NL Central champs. We've locked up the 3 seed now for sure heading into the playoffs here. It was basically guaranteed, but had to get that one. Magic number was at 1. Had to get that 1. So with that, right away, we are jumping into the Brewers last night. Lost that game 4-1 to the Cardinals. Checking out the box in there, Adrian Hauser took the loss for the Brewers in that one. Miles Michaelis got the win for the Cardinals. Looking at the stat line for pitchers, I didn't think Adrian Hauser pitched too bad. That 1 home run was the real breaker in this one for him. Other than that, 4 earned runs, 3 hits on the game, 5 innings pitched, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Like I said, that 1 home run was the big killer for Adrian Hauser in this one. Looking at the bullpen for the Brewers, as they've done, Milner, 2/3 of an inning, 1 hit, 1 K. Bryce Wilson, 1 inning and 2/3. Bryce Wilson has been a pleasant surprise for this Brewers bullpen this season. An inning and 2/3 on this one, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Chafin then came in, got into his normal trouble, and luckily didn't give up anything. 2/3 of an inning, 1 hit, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Colin Ray then finished it out for the Brewers, 1 inning and 2 strikeouts for Ray. So some impressive work there out of the bullpen for the Brewers in this one. Looking at the lineup, this is where the offensive struggle was, and it has been for a couple of days now producing runs. Yelich 0 for 3 on the ball game. Contreras 2 for 4. Santana 2 for 4 in this one with the 1 RBI for the Brewers. They put together spots where they could have produced runs early on, middle of the game, and they just couldn't push that run across. They couldn't come up with that big hit with 1 out, with 2 outs. Looking down the line up there, Canna 0 for 4, Frelick 0 for 4 in this one. Adames 1 for 4, robbed of an potentially 2 runs there. You can't do much about it on that diving play. Heck of a play by the third baseman for the Cardinals in that one. But Adames 1 for 4 in the night. Josh Donaldson 0 for 3. Terang 0 for 2. Tellez 0 for 1 in this one as a pinch hitter. Monasterio came in late then, didn't have a plate appearance, and Tyrone Taylor 0 for 3 in this one. I don't understand the Brewers in this game. Why, if you're going for a clinch for an NL Central crown, I know you can rely on the Cubs to lose. so it wasn't completely on you. But why is Andrew Monasterio not in that lineup for you to start? Josh Donaldson has played okay for the Brewers in this little stretch run he's had. But Monasterio has got you where you are right now. Monasterio has got a 263 average. I do not want to see Josh Donaldson in this lineup at third base in the playoffs if Monasterio isn't in there. Monasterio is hands down. And you want to come at me, you want to argue with me, you want to talk stat for stat, we can talk stat for stat. Monasterio is hands down in this season a better hitter than Josh Donaldson. I don't care about the veteran. I don't care that he's a been there, done that guy. Monasterio has been the guy for the Brewers in this season. He has taken over that spot at third base and ran with it. And we are just going to out him in a big game like this. I don't get it. I don't understand it. If Monasterio isn't in there, I don't want to see Josh Donaldson. I really don't. If Josh Donaldson's in the DH role, that's fine. If Monasterio's playing third, then great. If he's playing second and Donaldson's at third, okay, you sacrificed offense for defense in that sense. But if Josh Donaldson is in there instead of Monasterio in this playoff series, the Brewers, if they lose, and Josh Donaldson goes 0 for 3 in that ball game, Monasterio has produced for this Brewers team all season long. Why is he not in lineups like this? Why are we giving him days off right now? Josh Donaldson's not the answer. Monasterio has been the answer for the Brewers at times this season. I'm not saying he's always the answer. I'm not saying he always comes up with that big hit, but he has been a consistent bat for the Brewers, and we outed him in a game where we had the potential to clinch, and we outed him in this one. Don't like that lineup decision by Craig Counsell and the Brewers in this ball game. Looking at the Cardinals in this one, the Brewers did a good job. Holding this Cardinals offense down for the most part in this one. Looking at it, besides Walker had 2 hits in this one, Edman had 2 hits, Palacios had 1 hit, 2 RBIs, Edman had an RBI, and so did Wynn. But other than that, this lineup was held down for them. They had 5 hits in total, 2 coming from Walker, 2 coming from Edman, and 1 coming from Palacios. 11 strikeouts for the Brewers pitching staff in this one. The offense, again, just couldn't produce runs to back up the solid start. But Adrian Hauser is going to give up runs. You put him in a playoff game, he's going to give up runs. 1, 2, 3, he's going to give up 4 runs. Consistently, Adrian Hauser, 4 runs a game. That's his thing. You look at his ERA on the season there, 4.49. He's going to give up 4 runs. That's just a given. It's a matter of if the Brewers offense can back that. I'll take that start at Adrian Hauser. He doesn't have the overpowering stuff. He gets you outs. That's what he does, and that's what he did. And the Brewers offense couldn't back that up, give him any kind of performance in there to back him up on this one. That's just my opinion on it. You can think what you want. You can say what you want about it. I get it. You can't always have the perfect offensive outings, but this has been all season long. The Brewers cannot back solid starts by these pitchers or even put up enough runs to even battle in games like this. This game was decided when the Cardinals went up 4-1 in this one. Heck, it might have been decided when they were up 2-1 because the Brewers offense was struggling to advance runners and to push runs across in this one. And we saw that early on in this ball game. Looking at tonight's game for the Brewers here, a 6:40 start again. Miley will get the start against Thompson from the Cardinals in this one. I think they pushed Thompson back a day so that Miles Michaelis would set up to be that last. I know we were talking about the game yesterday and Thompson was supposed to be the starter. Miles Michaelis was pushed up so that way he could start the season finale for the Cardinals. Miley will get the start for the Brewers in this one. Looking at the stats against Thompson, we already talked about him mainly, but Contreras has got the best batting average against him. 3 at-bats, 667 average. Donaldson, 2 at-bats. He's got a home run against him. Perkins, 500 hitter. And then Yelich sitting at a 333. Looking at the Cardinals against Miley, Furman's hitting 500 against him in 2 at-bats. Goldschmidt's hitting 500 in 20 at-bats against him. 2 home runs. Edman in 19 at-bats is hitting 263. And Kisner is hitting 222 against him in 9 at-bats. Other than that, that's about it for outings against Wade Miley in their careers there. Miley coming in this one, 9-4 with a 3.20 ERA. Thompson coming in here with a 5-7 record, 4.57 ERA. And like I've said, I do not want to see the Brewers rest too many players in this one. I want to see the offense, the normal starting lineup, what we would see if this game still technically meant something. I want to see that offense out there, even if it's for 5-6 innings, just to keep the offense on the field, because the Brewers' offense isn't hot enough that you can say they're good. We need to rest them for the playoffs. They aren't. If you let this offense cool down too much, you will struggle come postseason time. The Brewers really do need to keep this offense on the field. I did see also Garrett Mitchell was back in town for this game against the Cardinals. He was out there celebrating with the team after the game. Maybe see Garrett Mitchell get activated from the 60-day IL and get put back into the lineup or onto the bench for the Brewers. Hopefully in the lineup so we can see Garrett Mitchell, get him ready in-game reps against the major league teams to get ready for the playoffs here. That would be a huge boost for the Brewers heading towards the playoffs to get a dynamic player like Garrett Mitchell back in this lineup. Another thing I wanted to add, hopefully last night while they were celebrating, somebody bubble wrapped Devin Williams, because son of a gun, we cannot handle him punching walls anymore. I cannot handle him getting hurt before the playoffs. They need Devin Williams there at the back end of the bullpen, so hopefully bubble wrap was applied to Devin Williams before this one. Other than that, I just don't understand what we're going to do with Andrew Chafin out there in the bullpen for the Brewers. Again tonight, he got out of it, but set himself up in a bad spot there. When you get against good teams, setting yourself up in a bad spot with first and second, one out, that usually leads to bad things. And Andrew Chafin does not have the stuff to get out of those innings. So what is his role going to be with this Brewers team? Are we wasting a spot with Andrew Chafin? Would we rather just bring up a guy like Robert Gasser out of AAA and just see him work, or even go with a guy like take one of the pitcher spots away? I don't know what the best move is, because you get into the playoffs, he isn't good in low leverage situations. He's not good in high leverage situations. He's just not consistently good for this Brewers bullpen. So I don't know what the Brewers should do with Andrew Chafin. If it was up to me, we would just bring Robert Gasser up, throw him out there in the bullpen, and just let it ride with him. I don't know what the Brewers will do, but we will see coming up here, heading into the final week. We're in the final week of the regular season. I know, it's crazy. How did we get to the final week of the regular season, heading into some playoff baseball? The feels are different around Milwaukee, around the state of Wisconsin. Everybody is getting ready. We're getting geared up, hoping to see a magical run from the Brewers there through the playoffs. And does this Brewers team feel different? Do they have what it takes to get a postseason push, to get deep into the playoffs, to an NLCS, potentially to a World Series? Does it feel like that? When I look at the pitching staff, when I look at Burns, Woodruff, Peralta, even a guy like Wade Miley, looking at the bullpen there with Uribe, having a guy like Devin Williams, and if Paguero comes back healthy and pitches well, Pompous maybe with some rest, he gets his arm lively again, gets that thing back into there, having a guy like Milner out there. With this pitching staff, the bullpen, I feel good. I really do. I feel good about the Brewers' chances. Then I look at the bats for the Brewers. When I look at the outfield, Sal Frelick out there, and potentially getting Garrett Mitchell back heading into the playoffs here, Mark Canha, Tyrone Taylor's kind of coming around to being something in this lineup, struggles at times, gets us key hits at other times. Christian Yelich, hopefully he flips over a leaf here heading to the playoffs and gets hot. With the outfield, feeling okay. I feel okay about the Brewers there. Looking at the infield, you keep Monasterio in there at third, at second. You have Josh Donaldson with a little bit of thump there in that lineup. Adames, starting to see some at-bats where he's slowly putting it together. What's in his head, going to the opposite field. You look at that swing there last night against the Cardinals. He drove it into right center. That was actually a pretty swing. It looked like one of his better swings that he's had all season long. So Adames maybe coming around there. Carlos Santana, a huge ad for the Brewers at the trade deadline. He's been hitting for the Brewers. His defensive plays have been solid. The offense, the infield, makes me have some hope. Having a guy like William Contreras behind the plate there with a solid average, a solid glove, having a backup like Caratini. This Brewers team, they got me feeling. They have me feeling like there's a possibility. I've went through stretches with this Brewers team where I lose all hope. And I've went through stretches where I think there's no way. There's no way they can compete with the Dodgers. There's no way they can compete with the Braves. I got a feeling. I really do. I think watching some of these games late in the season here where you just watch these guys and they slowly seem like they're starting to figure out what I have to do with a baseball to make something happen. Sal Frelick has been an on-base machine for the Brewers. Christian Yelich, hopefully he's getting back to in-game things here. His back was bothering him. Hopefully everything checks out there. Mark Canha has been solid for the Brewers ever since the trade deadline when we got him. I think the Brewers do have a chance. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough road ahead of them. Whoever they get in the wild card there, it's going to be tough sledding all the way through wild card series, then heading into the division series there against the Dodgers, and then rolling. If you beat the Dodgers, having to play a team like the Braves in the NLCS, it's going to be a struggle. But I do think the Brewers have the firepower in the starting rotation and in that bullpen to compete with some of these better offenses in the National League. I just worry about the bats and can they stay hot going into the playoffs? That'll be the question mark. And I think my question will be answered. I almost messed that up. My question will be answered here in this final week when they have the Cardinals for 2 more and then the Cubs. Can the Brewers offense start to get hot heading towards the postseason? That's what I'm waiting for, and that's what I hope to see with this Brewers lineup. But with that, I want to jump over into a new segment that kind of just popped in my head. I want to see how the Brewers acquired, traded, or got or drafted, brought up through the system there, to where they are now. So how they've gotten guys, different guys in this roster, where they came from, how they did, checking out some of the stats that are on their way, but just seeing how some of these guys got to the Brewers club. We're going to cover that over the next couple days here, heading towards the playoffs here for the Brewers, just to see how this playoff roster, we're not really sure how the playoff roster is going to completely line up yet. We have an idea. So we're going to cover most of it here and just see how we got to where we are. So with that, we're going to jump into it right away. And starting off with a guy who is the backup catcher for the Brewers, has been all season long. We know he's going to be on the playoff roster. Victor Caratini. How did the Brewers end up with a solid backup to William Contreras? Looking at it, so back in the 2019 season there, Victor Caratini was on the Chicago Cubs team. It looks like actually all the way back to, if you take it all the way back to 2016, 2015 season, he was on this Cubs team. Cubs then in 2019, 2020, going into that 2020 season, there, December 29, 2020, they traded Yu Darvish, Victor Caratini, and Cash to the Padres for Zach Davies, Reginald Percada, Yenson Santana, Yasmani Mana, and Owen Cassidy. So none of those guys have really developed into much. But that was the trade that sent Victor Caratini out to San Diego. Yu Darvish got his battery mate there in Victor Caratini, and they sent him out. Then in 2021, Victor Caratini was assigned to the Crillos de Caugas affiliate. The Brewers, the San Diego Padres traded Victor Caratini to the Brewers then on April 6, 2022 for catcher Brett Sullivan and Corey Howell. The Brewers activated him on that same day, and well, the rest is history. We've had Victor Caratini ever since then, and he's been basically a solid mainstay on the Brewers bench or on this roster for those years there. So you look at his years, 2017 to 2020 with the Cubs, 2021 he was with the Padres, and then in 2022 the Brewers acquired him. And ever since then, looking at year by year, he was a solid hitter back in 2019, 266. When he went to San Diego, dropped down to a 227 hitter in 2021 before coming to the Brewers, 199 hitter in 2022. And then in 2023, saw that average jump up to 251 and has been a solid backup catcher for this Brewers team here in this season. Looking at, so that's a little background on what we've seen there, how Victor Caratini became a Brewer. We're going to jump next into a guy. Hold on. Lost it. We're going to jump next into a guy who was traded to the Brewers this last offseason, and it kind of looked like the Brewers didn't give up much and got one heck of a deal back there. We're going to look at William Contreras there with this Brewers team. So William Contreras, age 25, coming to the Brewers, looking at some of the transactions in his lifetime. He's a two-team guy. He was with the Atlanta Braves, played with them in 2022, and then, in that 2022 season, he was assigned to the Braves. The Braves had him there in 2021. He was up with the Major League team, and then in 2022, he was with the Major League team also. In December 12th, 2022, the Atlanta Braves traded Freddie Tornok, Manny Pena, Ronak Salinas, Esteury Ruiz, and Kyler Muller to Oakland Athletics for Sean Murphy. In that deal, the Brewers acquired William Contreras back for him, along with, got to make sure I get the trade here right, because they got Yoel Pampas too. So just want to get the trade completely right here. Looking at the trade right here, it was a three-way deal. The Braves got Sean Murphy. The Brewers got William Contreras, Yoel Pampas from the A's, and then Justin Yeager from the Braves. And then the Brewers, in that deal, only gave up Esteury Ruiz, who the A's, he played a decent season for the A's this last year, or in this season now. But the Brewers came out like bandits in this deal here. William Contreras, in his years with Atlanta, 2020, he has a 400 hitter, 10 at-bats, four hits in those 10 at-bats. Saw his at-bats come up a little bit in 2021, 163 at-bats, a 215 hitter there in that season, 35 hits. And then in 2022, became an all-star. He had 93 hits and 334 at-bats, 20 home runs, and a 278 average before coming to Milwaukee, where now he has moved his average up to 289 with 17 home runs, 151 hits in 522 at-bats. So he has progressed year by year into becoming the guy we are watching every day as the Brewers' main catcher here going down the stretch. The Brewers got him. He was an offensive guy. He had a solid bat there coming to Milwaukee, and his defensive metrics were a little bit shaky. The Brewers developed him. He's a solid catcher, solid behind the plate with that solid bat now. He's an all-around great catcher for this Brewers team. I hope they extend him for even longer there in Milwaukee. But with that, we're going to jump into our next guy. And with our next guy there, we're going to be looking at infielder Willy Adames. Adames was, let's look at the transactions for Willy Adames. He played for the Rays 2018, 2017, all the way back to 2014. It looks like he was actually a part of the Rays organization. But then in 2021, the Brewers struck a deal with the Tampa Bay Rays. They added Willy Adames, traded for Willy Adames, and pitcher Trevor Richards. And in that deal, traded J.P. Feyereisen and Drew Rasmussen, both solid pitchers. Turned out to be actually pretty darn good pitchers there. Drew Rasmussen, especially out there with the Rays, was hurt this season, but turned out to be a pretty solid pitcher. And the rest is history for the Brewers. He turned around that 2021 season. Once they got Willy Adames, it's like that season turned around for the Brewers. Playoffs didn't turn around very much, but the Brewers played some solid ball once they added Willy Adames to that team. Looking at some of his stats there with the Rays, 278 hitter back in 2018, 254 hitter in 2019, 2020, 259. In 2021, he hit 262 in total, 285 for the Brewers and 197 for the Rays. 2022, he was a 238 hitter, and this season a 213 hitter for this Brewers team. What I want people to kind of see with Willie Adames is we were blessed in 2021. He came to Milwaukee and all of a sudden just lit this fire. And he had 104 hits, 365 at bats. He had 20 home runs in that season, 58 RBIs, and a 285 average. And everybody was like, this is what we expect out of Willie Adames every single day. If you look at his past stats, you look at 2018, he had a 278 average, less at bats, 288. Looking at 2020, 185 at bats and 259 average. But he's been an average hitter throughout his career. And then looking at this 2023 season, you uptick the at bats there to 539, and he's got a 213 average. Even looking at the last year with that 238 average, he's a below average hitter. He's always been below average or average hitter in the league. He's never been over the top. We can't expect Willie Adames to be over the top. We have to expect him to be streaky, as he is, and he's going to struggle at times for this Brewers team. All we can do is ride the low and reap the high points, and that's what we have been doing as Brewer fans throughout this season. And I still think the Willie Adames trade in 2021 was key. I do think Willie Adames could play a huge role for the Brewers even in 2023 here heading into the playoffs. I think he has to. I think that bat really needs to come alive for the Brewers to have success in this 2023 playoffs. With that, though, we are going to get out of Willie Adames, and we're going to jump into our next guy, and that is Brian Anderson, third baseman there. Hasn't seen the field much in a while. People are probably like, Brian Anderson? Who are you talking about, Brian Anderson? Brian Anderson, still on the bench for the Brewers here. 2022, he elected free agency from the Marlins, and the Brewers signed him in 2023. Elected free agency in November. Brewers signed him up in January 23rd, 2023. And, well, Brewers have him up until now here. Looking at his career stats, he started out, he kind of came into the league a little bit, not on a tear, but a solid hitter. 262 in 2017, 2018, a 273 hitter. In 2019, 261, 2020, a 255, and then the averages start to drop for him. 2021, 249. Injuries started to plague him down the stretch there. 2022, he was a 222 hitter, and in 2023, he's actually sitting at his 222 average again going into this one. He's always been a streaky hitter. The Brewers have seen that, and they've kind of gone away from him here down the stretch. He got us to where we are. That's all I got to say. Brian Anderson was a part early on in the season of getting us to where we are right now, NL Central champions. Can't take that away from what Brian Anderson has done for this Brewers team in this season. I would have liked to see him get a lot more at-bats here later in the season. I don't think we needed to jump on Josh Donaldson. I thought we had a potential bat in Brian Anderson sitting on our bench who could have added that spark, the same spark that Josh Donaldson was bringing to this Brewers team now. I thought Brian Anderson could have brought that to the Brewers, to be honest with you. You want to argue with me? Be my guest. But I do think that Brian Anderson could have been a spark. Not so much anymore. They went away from him. He hasn't played in weeks. I mean, he played in that 16-1 onslaught that they put on the Marlins the other day. But other than that, he hasn't played much. I don't think he'd be much of a factor anymore. But I do think before all of this, I think he could have been a spark in this lineup for the Brewers. But with that, we are going to get into two more guys today just to cover it. Looking at another guy, Josh Donaldson. And he was kind of a surprise to me. I wasn't really high on him coming to the Brewers. I still don't know how I feel about him. But either way, looking at the career of Josh Donaldson in we got to go back to all the way back to 2014. The Oakland Athletics actually traded Josh Donaldson to the Blue Jays. And in return, Sean Nolan, Brett Lowry, Kendall Graveman, and Franklin Barreto were sent to Oakland. So Josh Donaldson became a Blue Jay, had a pretty good time with the Blue Jays before he was traded to the Indians for a player to be named later. Not really sure who ended up being that guy, but we aren't going to get into that. We aren't worried about that. Josh Donaldson then with the Indians for 2018, elected free agency. After the 2018 season was done, he was actually signed by the Atlanta Braves November 26, 2018, before he elected free agency on October 31st, 2019. And then in 2020, the Minnesota Twins signed him before he was traded to the Yankees for Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela. Were traded to the Minnesota Twins for Donaldson, Isaiah Kinner-Falefa, and Ben Rodvet. And then he was with the Yankees for a little bit of time there, 2022 all the way up into 2023, before the Brewers signed him after he was released from the Yankees. With looking at his career stats, they go all the way back to 2010. That was his first season there, 32 at-bats, 5 hits, a 156 hitter. You roll through his years, 2012, he was a 241 hitter, 2013, 301, or 2013, 301. 2014, he was 255. Then you get to the time with the Blue Jays there, 297 hitter and a 284 hitter with Toronto there in 2015 and 2016. 2017, he was a 270 hitter. Looking into the 2018 season with Toronto, a 234 hitter. And then with Cleveland, he actually hit 280. His 1 year in Atlanta, he hit 259 before going to the Twins and hitting 222 and 247. 222 hitter with the Yankees there in 2022. And then looking at 2023, he was a 142 hitter with the Yankees. With the Brewers now, he is 191. I don't know what screamed that to the Brewers that we need this guy on this roster, but he was on a steady decline after even looking at the 2019 season. After that, he dropped his career high then. 2021, he hit 247. But other than that, he was on a steady decline year by year. So I don't know what screamed about that to the Brewers that we need this guy and he's going to make the postseason push for us. As a Brewer fan, I'm going to cheer for him. I'm going to root for him. I'm going to pray for the best. All I'm saying is that I don't know what screamed to everybody that this was the answer and he was going to be that guy for the Brewers there. We need another veteran in the clubhouse. Okay, if you want another veteran, sign him and make him sit on the bench and don't let him take up a roster spot. Just ask him to sit there because I really don't think Josh Donaldson was the huge ad that the Brewers really needed there at the waiver end there. But either way, enough about Josh Donaldson. We have one more guy to jump into today, and that is Andrew Monasterio. I love me some Andrew Monasterio. Seems like a genuinely nice guy, down-to-earth, contact bat dude. I just think Andrew Monasterio is a very good player for this Brewers team. I know we don't want to get feelings involved in this, but I just think looking at Andrew Monasterio, the way he plays, I think he's great for clubhouse morale, and I don't think in any way that you can really replace what he does for this Brewers team. And looking at Andrew Monasterio, just to see how his past has looked, he was with the Cubs organization, then he was with the Cleveland Guardians there for a little bit before the Brewers. He elected free agency from the Guardians. The Brewers picked him up. They signed him in 2021, and they assigned him to Nashville. And then he was actually reassigned to the Biloxi Shuckers before coming back up to Nashville in 2022. And then in 2023, the Brewers brought him up, and the rest is history from what we've seen this season. He has been a solid bat for the Brewers, has been struggling a little bit as of late for the Brewers. Playing time has been up and down for him because of the signing of Josh Donaldson. We've been rotating him in and out, and it showed in his batting average. He hasn't been getting as many at-bats for the Brewers here down the stretch. But I do think he's still huge for this Brewers team. Looking at his last 30 games, 25 for 91, a 275 average, 10 RBIs. He's a solid contact bat heading for this Brewers team heading into the playoffs. And not much to cover in career stats with Andrew Monasterio. One season, he's hitting 263 for the Brewers, 3 home runs, 27 RBIs, 72 hits in 274 at-bats. He's been solid for the Brewers here. But with that, that is all we're going to cover with the Brewers roster for today. We are going to jump into more tomorrow here, covering down how players have gotten to the Brewers there, either by trade, coming up through the organization, anything like that. We're going to be covering that leading up to the playoffs here. But with that, we're going to jump over into the Packers because the Packers have a game here Thursday night against the Detroit Lions. And it's starting to look a little bit better there for injury-wise. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson both reported that they're expected to play on Thursday. They talked to Christian Watson after practice. Christian Watson came out and said, the plan is for me to play on Thursday. With that, getting the contribution of Aaron Jones back there in the backfield, having a guy like Christian Watson back out there and the receiving corps, he adds a lot of vertical threat for this Packers team, can get outside the numbers. He's got, as we saw down the stretcher last season, some wheels. He's got some hands that we didn't know about right away. Hopefully see this Packers team take off here, now getting the offense sort of back here. Looking at the injury report as of right now, Elton Jenkins is questionable yet. Christian Watson still listed as questionable, but expect to see Christian Watson out there on the field along with Aaron Jones. Another guy would be huge to get back. He was listed as limited participant during practice yesterday for the Packers there, Jair Alexander. Looking at, actually as of yesterday, Watson wasn't medically cleared yet, but hope to see him back there. Aaron Jones limited. Campbell was listed as a non-participant yesterday on the injury report. Rashawn Gary, questionable, but expect to see him out there. Zach Tom exited Sunday's game with a knee injury. Nothing really coming from it yet. And then looking at the other guys here, Elton Jenkins was questionable, and David Bakhtiari is still listed as questionable. But expect some of these guys back. I really do hope to see guys like Aaron Jones and Christian Watson back out there for the Packers. We will jump into a lot more Packers there after the game on Thursday, but we have to look quick at the preview there for the Packers against the Lions. Tomorrow night, Lions, looking at them for the injury report there, David Montgomery is still questionable for this one. CJ Gardner is on the IR yet. And then looking at other ones yet, Emmanuel Mosley is questionable and Taylor Decker. So we're going to get into a little bit more of this tomorrow before the game there, covering what we expect to see and giving a full preview of this Packers-Lions game. But with that, that is about all I have for Wisconsin sports today. NL Central champion Brewers will be taking on the Cardinals tonight yet, and then we will have Packer football tomorrow night tomorrow night against the Lions there. But with that, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trade. It's been awesome talking to you guys. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Deuces, Brew Crew.